Hello and welcome to Overvolted. I am your host, Kirk Johnson. We have Matthew joining us today.
Hey.
We are going to discuss some new information over at video cards. We have basically a lot of leaks, a whole lot of leaks about the upcoming 3000 series or whatever they end up calling it. We've heard some 2100 series rumors, but I don't think that's going to happen. We've seen this 3090 printed on a bunch of boxes, and I think that'll definitely be what they're going for, just based on all the leaks we've seen so far. So, Matthew, you want to open up the discussion?
Sure. And before we actually get into it, I had totally forgotten that their whole marketing campaign was surrounding the number 21. Why did they do that?
Maybe it's so because confused. They were talking 21 days from that initial, hey, we're going to talk about something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the 21 series, except it's not the 21 series, it's the 30 series. So I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. But anyways, so not surprising, the announcement's coming up. Box art's leaking. 3000 series confirmed. The big thing, of course, is in video cards leak, he's had two leaks where he's seen specification and it specifically says 7 nanometer, which, as we all expected, don't be surprised about this. This is not surprising. The 8 nanometer rumor was totally wrong, because why would they go with 8 nanometer Samsung? So the big question right now is which 7 nanometer?
Because
I've been thinking about this for a while.
Yeah, we know with Adored's video, he kind of laid it out very cleanly that 7 nanometer is 5 nanometer. All it is just a performance improvement on the node.
At Samsung specifically.
Yes, at Samsung specifically.
Now, so basically we have two options. We have, well, I guess technically three. We have Samsung 7 nanometer, maybe Samsung 5 nanometer if they're calling it a 7 plus or something. I think at this point we can rule out 5 nanometer, but we should still keep it in the back of our minds, I think. And then, of course, TSMC 7 nanometer. Either the P or the normal or the plus, which is EUV. It's one of those. So I've had a lot of time to think about this. I still think some of these must be Samsung. I don't know if all of them will be Samsung, but I think it just some of them have to be Samsung, right?
Well, we know that the A100 was done on Samsung 7 nanometer. Or
you mean Samsung,
TSMC 7 nanometer. I bet you they may have another line that's similar to the A100 that's running on TSMC as well. Maybe with some extra wafers they got. I don't know.
No, I think the A100 is pretty unique. I don't think we're going to see anything else like it.
But we know that Samsung has a whole lot of volume that they're just not using due to Qualcomm dropping out and all that stuff. So it makes sense. There's spare volume over at Samsung, and they could just jump on that and get a bunch of wafers printed out.
So here's my theory about how this is going to go. So for Pascal, we know that all of the GPUs, except for the 1050 and 1050 Ti, were TSMC. The 1050 and 1050 Ti were Samsung. And we heard last year that nVidia was going with Samsung. They just said they were using Samsung for gaming GPUs, which was kind of novel because I don't believe they had done so for Turing GPUs at all. And then later we heard from a kind of sketchy article that most of the gaming GPUs, or most of their 7 nanometer GPUs, not gaming GPUs, but 7 nanometer GPUs would be TSMC. So to me, it kind of sounds like that the top end is going to be TSMC, maybe some of the mid or all of the mid range, and then some of the mid to the low end are going to be Samsung.
Which would be volume shipments, and that would make perfect sense in order to get volume out there with some of the more reserved quantities. Obviously, at significantly higher prices are going to go out under that constrained volume.
Now, it could still be that all of the GPUs, all the gaming GPUs are Samsung 7 nanometer or some other
7/5,
or 6. There's a bunch of there. It's like a class, basically.
Yeah.
But then we're gonna have to start saying that some sources weren't correct. Like, for example, the article that gave us the info on the majority of the 7 nanometer production going to TSMC, that's kind of a sketchy source. It's possible it was mistranslated, for example, because it was I think it was originally in Chinese, or nVidia lied about the TSMC. Sorry, about Samsung gaming GPUs being a significant thing, or I don't know. It just like once you start getting outside of only TSMC or only Samsung, I'm sorry. Once you start getting outside of TSMC and Samsung doing some GPUs, then you have to start saying that some sources weren't correct at all.
Yeah, and I mean, Jensen himself said that the majority of their 7 nanometer would be done at TSMC, but if they're using Samsung's quote-unquote 5 nanometer, which is 7 nanometer plus plus, then he's not wrong. He didn't lie.
But then
it's that kind of tongue-in-cheek deception that nVidia likes to throw out there to give kind of an idea of what they're doing, but not actually lie, because they don't like lying. Nobody likes companies that lie, but they can tell people that they have something that they don't really have. And that would be, it's sounding like NVIDIA's jumping on the TSMC 7 nanometer bandwagon and getting all of their GPUs printed at TSMC, when in actuality they aren't. So that could be a positive PR spin, but also give them something even perhaps better. I don't know. We don't know that much about Samsung's 5 nanometer process and how good it is, how much the yield is, or much about the performance specs that NVIDIA is getting out of it.
The only problem with that line of thinking is that if it's 5 nanometer, then it contradicts these leaked documents. See what I mean? But when we start arguing about it only being Samsung fabbed or only TSMC fabbed, there are necessarily contradictions. You're at least contradicting one thing if you say it's only TSMC or only Samsung. The only way you don't contradict anything is by saying it's both.
If only there was a leak out there that gave us any kind of affirmative one way or another, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, you could have gone with the 8 nanometer stuff.
Yeah, and been totally wrong. Sure.
Yeah. But like that's just the funniest thing. Like for a little while, I believed the 8 nanometer thing because I was super hyped about RDNA 2.
Well, and we thought that NVIDIA kind of got, I don't know,
greedy.
Blackballed, because of the whole TSMC thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but then we were like, hang on a minute, they're already on 12 nanometer. Why would they go to Samsung, waste a bunch of time and money for an unoptimized product
that's essentially the same node?
Yeah, I mean, or perhaps even worse because it's not optimized. Like they've used 14 nanometer Samsung, but they've never used 10 nanometer.
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge. So that would be a totally new node for them too.
And I don't think it was tool compatible, so...
Well, even if it was tool compatible, there's also other like layers of compatibility.
And they'd already pushed their 14 nanometer or 12 nanometer against the wall. They were making huge dies just to get the 2000 series up in that performance range.
Like, how do people expect them to increase the core count by 20% on a node that might not even have any better density or might even have worse density? So 8 nanometer, like, there was a time in which you could think that realistically, but like we've had like 3 months to think about it, 3-4 months to think about 8 nanometer, and at this point it's pretty clear that no, that didn't make any sense. Though I can't blame people that hard. Despite my skepticism, Kopite and Corgi have been pretty much on the ball. The only thing that they got wrong, I think, was the insistence on 8 nanometers. It was odd how insistent they were that it had to be 8.
Well, maybe they had a legitimate source that said 8 to throw them off.
That could be. It also could be that they knew or they really thought that it was Samsung. They didn't know exactly what node it was, and then they saw all the news about Samsung's EUV nodes not being that great, and they were like, "Oh, well, logically, it has to be 8."
Yeah, so maybe their source said that they were going to get the majority of their GPUs from Samsung, and
Well, they don't even need to have a source to tell them that. They can just look at what everybody else was looking at.
well, everyone else was thinking TSMC.
No, most people were thinking 8 nanometer.
Was that because they sourced it from those leaks, or was it
Well, yeah,
something else?
because but what I'm saying is that they weren't the first. Those leakers weren't the first people to suggest 8.
Oh, so they just bandwagoned. Okay.
Well, kind of, yeah. But like obviously these leakers certainly proliferated the idea that 8 nanometer was the correct node. They proliferated that the most.
Yeah.
So I just think,
do we know die dimensions based on some of these leaked pictures?
627 millimeter or 628.
That sounds smaller than the 2080 Ti.
Yes, that's about 100 smaller. 120, I think.
So they're going to get 20% more transistors or CUDA cores in a die that is technically smaller than the one you're comparing against, and they don't,
a lot smaller,
and they don't think it is a 7 or 5 nanometer downsize.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, because here's the thing: they leaked the die size. They leaked the die size before then.
Well,
so
the leaked die size is kind of a wishy-washy thing.
But they got it right. As far as we know, they're right.
I thought it was in the 500 range rather than the 6 for the leak.
No, the leak. What they said, this was like a month or two ago. They said 627, or sorry, about 627. Then an image of the die itself leaked, and based on fairly accurate, I'll say fairly accurate and precise image, like pixel measuring, and like using stuff as a reference, people were getting 627 and 628. So I'll give them the credit. Right now, as far as we can tell, they got that right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they were insistent that I think they ruled out the EUV rather than they thought it must be 8 nanometer.
Maybe they just pulled out all the RT stuff and made a traversal coprocessor. That would give them plenty of space, right?
Hey, don't make fun of Cortex. He's forward looking. He's ahead of his time.
By probably several generations.
Well, then it'll age well.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, so I think it not being 7, if it was the actual Samsung 5 nanometer, then they would say 5 nanometer. There's no way nVidia would not want to say 7.
Well,
why would they want to say 7?
Yeah.
There's really no good reason I can think of.
They would definitely try the marketing term of 5 nanometer just to make it sound better than alternatives that they could have picked, such as...
Especially AMD.
Yeah.
Especially AMD.
Because if AMD comes out and says, hey, look, we're on 7N+++ or whatever, you know, they're going to want to be able to go, well, look, we're on 5.
So I think that's strong evidence that it's TSMC, but who knows? Because we do know that the original plan was Samsung 7.
Well, we could just go with Occam's razor. Jensen said that
we're going
TSMC 7 nanometer is going to be their primary, and
God damn it, this is so hard to. Well, we can't know. It's impossible to figure out.
I think if anything, we can give nVidia kudos for doing really well at keeping all of this under wraps. It took a long time for any of this deep leak stuff to actually come out. Like, we didn't have die shots early on, or we didn't have
we did.
It
came out a few days ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just a handful of days shy of the release date, for Pete's sake. You know, we didn't have this months in advance. The earliest we had was the 30 series, you know, naming convention, and then we had a shot of the heatsink fab.
And we also had core counts and clock speeds and memory.
Yeah, we did get that. Was that after we got the shroud?
I think that was before, actually. Or I think it might have been around the same time.
But we know that if there was anything that caused a big upstir, it was the leak of the shroud.
Yeah.
I mean, that launched internal investigations kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And I don't think the 12-pin connector was that big of a revelation. I mean, especially since some of the companies, like this picture here I have pulled up for Zotac, is still using the 2 8-pin. So
yeah,
not everyone
the
was
12...
using the 12. So since that's more of a niche thing and not everyone had it, maybe you need kind of leakers out there were thinking, well, maybe it's, but yeah.
What was the most surprising to me was the GDDR6X, because it's not JEDEC certified.
Yeah.
I was almost certain that was fake.
Well,
like,
yeah. I mean,
it really surprises me that Micron went out and made a type of memory that technically isn't legit.
Yeah. I mean, clocking that thing up to 1921 and so, I mean, that's pretty crazy numbers.
Yeah. And it's made me think whether or not I want to upgrade to Ampere. Like if I wanna wait for RDNA 2, see if that's good, or if I should just go straight to Ampere.
Well, here's the thing: you might not have a choice because the launch might be a paper launch, and if it's,
that's what I was thinking.
If it's not a paper launch, then it might be a 3-week early kind of a thing where they announce it on the 1st, it becomes available on the 17th to the 21st, somewhere in that range, and when you do go to buy it, it's going to be in limited quantities.
Yeah.
So they'll probably sell out almost instantly. And
I feel like
it'll be almost like buying a GPU during the mining craze until, 2-3 months on. Yeah, because they'll get shipments. There'll be hundreds of cards in size rather than thousands, and they'll sell out instantly. People will be camping on, and now in stock or something like that. And you'll see scalping of these video cards. There's going to be a rush on them just to scalp them. So if you're a legitimate user wanting to buy one of these for yourself, you're going to be hard pressed. You're going to have to start employing some automation in order to get some of these, just because we know that scalping is a thing that people do now, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Well, if I'm going to be waiting anyways, I might as well see if RDNA 2 can convince me to stick with AMD again.
If nothing else, if nVidia hits a home run and they become so attractive that nobody's considering some of the AMD cards, you might...
And then more supply.
You might just have the opportunity to buy them normally, like, a normal person.
Well, here's the thing. Since the leakers were right, I thought there were going to be more cores. I thought there were going to be more cores on these GPUs, and I thought 5,000 was too low. The thing is, I mean, that kind of gain on top of the RTX 2080, that's 20% more cores, and then we might have some higher clock speeds, and then we have some architectural improvements.
And a huge jump to the
and
RAM.
Power.
And
RAM. I mean, how much faster do you think this could possibly be? Because I'm pretty dead set on using the RTX 2080 Founders Edition as a reference. I'm pretty convinced that AMD can get at least 40%, probably 50% faster than that.
AMD or nVidia?
AMD.
Okay.
With nVidia, I mean, 50% kind of sounds like a stretch.
Well, what do you think the 3090 is going to land at?
I mean,
it's essentially a Titan card, just called a 3090, so that the Titan can remain undefeated if AMD does come out with something that significantly beats the 2080 Ti.
Well, let's look at the 3080 first. I think that's the same exact core count as the 2080 Ti.
Yes.
And then that's going to be a little bit more memory bandwidth, maybe like 10-20%.
Yeah, because I think that one's only at 19. Right?
And then more power, so it's going to have a little bit more power. I think that's 320 watts.
Yeah.
So it's going to have higher clock speed. So we're looking at 20. They might be able to get like 30% with the 3080 over the 2080 Ti. And then the 3090, I mean, well, it has to have... Yeah, I think it can do at least 50 then. It can probably do at least 50. As long as the clock scales well.
Yeah.
But then here's the thing. The 3090 is going to be super expensive. And it's really just a Titan rebranded as a gaming card, isn't it? because I mean that's the same amount of memory as the RTX Titan.
Yeah, and I mean, going from 10 gig all the way up to 24 gig, you can tell that this was designed as a Titan card. But
this is funny. Hang on. So I don't know if we can keep this in the podcast, but one of my little birdies is telling me it does appear to be Samsung 7 nanometer now.
Actual 7?
Well, let's wait. I'll let you know what he's saying. I guess we can get this out of the podcast.
Live unfolding.
Yeah, it's gonna be really weird.
Breaking
when
news.
This. He's gonna be like, "Hey, that's me."
Oh, you said it was a...
Wait, hang on.
You said it was a he.
He's telling me, "Are you aware that 5 LPE has been folded into 7 LPP? It's basically the same process." Hang on.
Uh-oh. Ask him if it can be made public.
But I don't think he wants to be.
No, not him.
So, I guess... Okay, so if it is Samsung, then either that article was a lie, mistranslated, or Jensen lied. Or he could have been taken out of context.
Or the article was not accurate to begin with. It wasn't that it was mistranslated.
That's what I mean.
No, not necessarily a lie. It could
well,
have
you know
just
what
been
I mean. Bad. Incorrect.
Wrong. Yes. Because you could have been told legitimately by somebody that, like the fake leak pictures of the RDNA 2 that we saw.
Oh my god, though. But that one was so bad. That was also someone intentionally trolling us.
Yeah, but that one would have been a lie on behalf of the leaker. And that's what this could be, is that article may have been a lie on behalf of the leaker.
Yeah.
As opposed to the person that wrote it or the person that translated it. We can't blame anyone in the chain that reported on it because, they don't know. They didn't have the original source and they didn't have a way to validate it because it's a leak.
So he's saying, well, he's asking me if nVidia would market it as 7 to fit Samsung's nomenclature. Did Samsung change the nomenclature? I gotta ask him this because he's coming up with this to me suddenly.
I mean, if they did eliminate 5 nanometer as a marketing term and rolled that into the 7, I'd almost think that they would just call the 7 5 at that point, unless if they wanted to ride the 7 nanometer hype that they've already built with their 7 nanometer process and make it sound like the yields are better or something.
So if 5 nanometer technically doesn't exist anymore, specifically 5 nanometer LPE, which is, I think that means low power early. It's possible that Samsung has changed the nomenclature, kind of like how TSMC did with 7 nanometer. And you remember, AMD suddenly changed the roadmaps to say 7 nanometer instead of 7 nanometer plus for stuff like Zen 3 and I think RDNA 2. We were expecting, because originally 7 nanometer plus meant EUV, but that's not what it means anymore. 7 nanometer plus might not exist. Like, we have specifications for 7 nanometer EUV node, but we don't have, like, apparently the 7 nanometer plus thing is, like, dead. So maybe this is what's happening. But this is not planned, by the way. This is not like a
contrived.
Yeah, this isn't like a stage thing. This guy like messages me like in the afternoon usually, and it just happened to be right in the middle of the podcast. That's so crazy. Okay, anyways. And going back to the point, that thing about upgrading, I also think I need to upgrade my my CPU as well. With Zen 3 coming out pretty soon, I could do a double CPU and GPU.
Just depends on what you're sitting on.
Yeah, I mean, I have a 3600 and it's good, but because it's very power and thermally limited, I might I didn't really originally want to get Zen 3, but I might have to, because I've been doing streaming lately, I've been doing video editing, and that takes up a lot of CPU power. And I actually tested the 3600 against my 4900H in DaVinci Resolve to see if that could do the video editing faster. And the 3600 is actually slightly faster, which surprised me. Kirk, we were talking about this earlier, where I was actually pretty sure that the 4900HS would beat it, but I think that might be because my reference My point of reference was Cinebench R20.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of similar. I mean, it's rendering. That's not exactly the same thing, but
No, it's not even similar.
oh, it's not similar. Well, you know what I mean. Like it loads up all the cores.
A decent sized CPU won't be fully loaded from encoding video.
Yeah.
It just won't.
Well, the 3600 and the 4900 HS do.
They're smaller CPUs.
God, the days when 6 and 8 cores are small.
Hey, I'm sitting here on a 12, and
And you also have the Threadripper.
well, I do have a Threadripper, and it takes 3 simultaneous encodings in order for that thing to get over 85%.
I wonder why. Because what's the same? That's 3 8-core CPUs basically.
Because Handbrake, FFmpeg, those kinds of things aren't really
Oh, you're not
optimized
right.
to run at high core counts. They seem to tap out pretty much around, 8 to 10?
Uh-huh.
So if you provide them with more than 8 cores, 10 cores, they're not going to be able to efficiently utilize all those extra cores.
Yeah. So that makes me think, should I just stop at 12 cores maybe?
I
should probably get the 12 core. I don't think I need the 16.
Yeah, I think price for performance, your 12 core is going to be a nice sweet spot for you.
Yeah.
If you went
and
up
I can put in eco mode.
Yeah, you could.
Because if you all aren't aware, and most of you probably aren't, because why the hell would you care what specific heatsink I'm using? I'm using the L9A, and that's only rated for like the lower power A and B SKUs, so like the 3600, 3700X. And there was a recent leak that confirmed our leak from like 2 months ago. I'm pretty sure they had like the same materials or something very close to what we were given, because it's almost the exact same information. So Zen 3, we're looking at like a 15%-ish integer gain, and perhaps a minor floating point gain, but it's not going to be anything like the 50% that we saw with like the Red Gaming Tech leak. I mean, that's a fair bit more efficient, like 15%, same performance, same power, and then I can get double the cores. That should make the video editing go really fast, even if it's only limited to 65 watts.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't planning on upgrading at all until I realized that 6 cores weren't so fast anymore. God damn it, AMD. Why'd you have to be suddenly innovative again? We could have had 4 cores and been happy.
Happy in our ignorance? No, we would have been thrashing at the boundary, trying to justify upgrading to a 6 or 8 core on the HEDT platform.
It's like
Spend 3
Plato's
times
cave right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember that? That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
It's what everyone has to read when they take a college or high school philosophy class. Yeah, what do you think the pricing could look like on Zen 3? I'm thinking it'll probably go up, even though it shouldn't.
On Zen 3, I think they take the opportunity to reset back to like a 99 kind of number, so 29.9, 399, 499 kind of stuff.
Well, Zen 2 was kind of the resetting moment, and of course the prices have come down since. But I mean, I'm talking about like MSRP.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking to.
Okay, so let's say 4950X. We could see like maybe $800
for 16 core. I don't know. We've already seen some price drops for the 16 core right now to where it's in the 600 range. So
I think at the very least it'll be the same price.
Yeah, $749.
Yeah,
that seems pretty reasonable to me.
But I mean, they definitely could increase the price, because like, well, what's Intel gonna do?
Drop prices? Like
what? Intel drop prices? What universe do you live in, Kirk?
Hey, didn't you see how they dropped the price of the 10900?
Did they?
Well, yeah, they made the 10850 that has the same performance, just at a lower price. Oh,
yeah, right. But you probably can't buy it. Like, these CPUs aren't in very large quantities at all.
Well, no, the article that talked about it actually said that it might actually come out in more volume than the 10900. and so it's a CPU you might actually be able to buy.
I don't know about that. It's like all the 10th. Think about this. All of the 10th gen CPUs, no matter what segment you're talking about, have had horrible supply. Ice Lake, well, actually, Ice Lake has kind of had decent supply, but I think that's mostly because
No one wants
nobody's
it.
really, no one's really buying it. Like I think like 20% of HP's laptops are Ice Lake. If we're just talking about 10th gen,
Mm-hmm.
if we're taking also like the 9th gen stuff, which they are still selling, it's even less than 20%. And then like so like high end desktop 10th gen, are they even selling that anymore? Because I always see all the time people complaining about like they can't buy like the 10980XE. I mean, like they cut the price in half. Of course, they don't want to sell more of them or even as many. And then now we have the mainstream 10th gen, which I mean, at least the high end stuff seems to be in rather poor supply. So it just seems like Intel is like, fine, we'll give you a better CPU, but you won't be able to buy it.
Well, it's just so that they can claim tops of charts. The only people that have them are going to be reviewers, so that they can end up on charts. And then, of course, the thing is, the mental gymnastics that happens is, well, if Intel's at the top of this chart, then that means one of their cheaper parts is also going to be pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like the DIY segment, whether it's high-end desktop or like mainstream, it's not making Intel that much money anymore. They don't care. I mean, like the Ice Lake thing, I'm sure is seriously concerning to them, but Tiger Lake seems to fix that. Oh, and that launches soon. I actually, wait, hang on. Is that launching the same day as Ampere? Because it's, what day is September 2nd?
The day after Ampere?
Okay, yeah, that's the day after. Okay, well, sorry, not launch. It's either launch or announcement or something. We don't know for Tiger Lake. But, you know, the CPU on there actually looks fairly compelling for once. I mean, it's only a quad core, but apparently it goes up to 4.8 gigahertz. Though, could be one of those AMD algorithms or something similar, where it's like, yeah, this goes up to 4.8. Though, to be honest, like, Intel's isn't any better, right?
Well, we know how their boosting has worked in the past, where it'll hit that number for, you know, milliseconds, and then once it's hit its allotted time at that, it'll drop down automatically.
Well, not for milliseconds. It'll be like for like maybe a minute.
I haven't seen it be as long as a minute, except for at lower boost speeds.
Yeah, it depends. It depends.
But it wouldn't hit the max boost speed for minutes.
Now, if it is like an AMD kind of boost, then I'm all for that, because you're getting the maximum amount of performance you possibly can, instead of getting the maximum performance you possibly can and then a really poor amount of performance for the duration of your workload. So it might, that 4.8 could be better than it actually is, but if it is boosting up to 4.8, well, that's a lot better than Ice Lake was ever able to get. I think Ice Lake caps out at like, I know there's a SKU that they said they launched, but actually doesn't really exist. That's like maybe 4.4. I think the highest end SKU that you can realistically buy is like maybe like 4.2. So yeah, I mean, like, it's funny that the part that we were expecting with Tiger Lake to suck is actually good, and the one we were expecting to be really good is actually just kind of mediocre. Because like only 30% fast, like if the GPU is only 30% faster than Renoir, then is that really that big of a deal?
30%? That's a fair gain.
That's decent, but it's not really enabling like a whole new kind of gaming experience, is it?
Compared to just being straddled with a 2060? No, not really.
Well, the Tiger Lake's not going to be paired with, well, Tiger Lake U won't be paired with the 2060 anyways.
No, I'm talking more the Renoir.
Oh, yeah.
If you got a 2060 in the system anyway, what would you need the 30 extra on the iGPU for?
Yeah. So, of course, Tiger Lake H, the 8-core model, will only have like a 32 EU XE GPU, which is a third of the size.
Mm-hmm.
So that's obviously more gaming oriented. It's just like thinking, it's like, yeah, Intel's faster, but they were later to market, and the CPU is, if we're comparing top end to top end, the CPU is slower, at least in multi-core. And single thread, it could be a lot faster, but multi-core, it's a lot slower.
I'm sure all the people that game on their Microsoft Surface is going to be extremely happy.
Well, yeah, like in its own right, I think Tiger Lake could be good. Like it won't destroy Renoir, but Renoir won't destroy Tiger Lake either. The only problem is that it's too late. It's way too late to market.
Well, that's what happens when your process node kind of falls on its face.
Though it's surprising that they kind of fixed 10 nanometer.
Super fins.
Yeah. Whatever that means. Like when people were telling me that it's been fixed, I was like, yeah, okay. They've made it slightly better. And they were like, no, really, it's a lot better. I'm like, but is it though? And it was like, yeah, it is a lot better. At least in terms of performance and perhaps power efficiency. The yields, I'm sure, are still fairly bad.
Well, from what I've seen, they added some super capacitors in the transistors to help.
What does that mean?
That's why it's called super fin, is because they have super capacitors that help get that charge through the gate.
Kirk, are you screwing with me, or is that actually why they're calling it that?
That's what I read.
What?
I could be misremembering, but that's what I read.
Super capacitors?
Yeah, just a little
Game
micro
cache. Rambo cache.
Rambo cache.
That's Intel's response. I still don't know. What is Rambo cache again? I know it's something to do with their GPUs, but all I can remember is what it's called and not what it actually does.
I thought it was like a collective of cache, like where they pool like 2 and 3 or something. But
that might.
I didn't pay that much attention to it. I couldn't get past the name.
Yeah, Rambo cache. At least game cache makes sense, but Rambo cache? Like what were they thinking? Does that mean something? Kirk, does Rambo mean anything in tech?
Not in tech.
Okay. So I'm not wrong for just thinking about Sylvester Stallone.
I think everyone is thinking Sylvester Stallone.
Okay. So I'm not an idiot. Well, yeah. I mean, that's debatable, but I'm not being especially an idiot in this moment.
Yeah, I can't think of why they would try even being close to like Rambus.
What's that mean? What's that mean?
You don't remember Rambus RAM?
It sounds familiar.
It's what they had it as a requirement back in the day on one of their CPU lines. You had to get Rambus for it. There was a whole explosion, lawsuits, collapse.
Whoa!
It not between Intel and stuff, but the actual Rambus company. But yeah, it sprung up, big name, then died.
Huh. I remember when well, I don't remember, but I heard that Intel tried to move the memory controller onto the RAM sticks. That sounds pretty weird.
I don't think so. Like, I can see some advantage of having like a controller on the RAM itself. And I did read that too. Not necessarily the whole RAM controller, but just a segment of it. Basically, it would help eliminate all of these dual quad rank sticks and having it to do this unbuffered RAM versus buffered RAM.
Yeah.
And it would help improve the speed of that communication.
Well, at any rate, that's not what happened. And that product died fairly quickly.
Yeah, I think on desktop, we've only been seeing up to 2 rank RAM sticks. But
yeah, I haven't.
Server space, you get quad.
This is the first time I've heard of quad.
Yeah.
What do ranks do, by the way? Because I've read about them, and I've read that single rank is faster, so the more ranks you have, the slower it is. But what exactly does that do?
It's like stacking extra sticks behind a single stick of RAM. It just allows you to get more density.
So, so it's just about capacity?
Yeah, quad rank will allow you to get 4 times the density on the stick.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's just a way to get more top-end RAM quantity in a server.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like something that's terribly useful on desktop.
No, but we still get dual rank.
Yeah. Well, is dual rank actually slower than single?
Marginally.
Because that's what I've read.
Just marginally. It's when you get up to quad that it starts to get slower.
All right.
but
Uh,
it's a performance trade-off. Do you need
yeah.
twice the amount of RAM, or do you want a little
Oh,
bit more speed?
speaking of RAM and going back to the video editing thing, I almost hit my maximum amount of RAM that I have in my system.
8
I
gig.
was at like 14, 15 gigabytes of RAM.
I have 64 gig in my system.
What do you have in your Threadripper?
My Threadripper is running 64 as well.
Ah, okay. Well, you have RAM to spare then.
It's because I purchased the RAM. I didn't get seeded RAM. I didn't get gifted any kind of RAM for review or anything like that.
Well, I'm just saying you could share a little.
I can't take more RAM out of my Threadripper. It requires
Does it actually require 4?
the 4 sticks. No, it doesn't require it, but I don't want to kneecap the thing either.
Oh, come on. It's a Threadripper.
I was
Give Intel a chance.
I was talking to somebody about their Threadripper setup that they were doing for a customer, and and they were talking about how they were legitimately having like anxiety over just booting the system, and they posted a very blurry photo of their BIOS showing their temperature and stuff. They were getting 40 Celsius in the BIOS with a 360 millimeter radiator.
That's fine.
No, it's not.
How is that not fine?
I was getting a temperature delta of 18 over a 22 Celsius room. So
Really?
I was getting 30. What was it? I got to do mental math here. Don't do mental math on the spot.
Wait, did you say 18 and 22?
Yeah, so that's 30.
That's 40.
40?
That's 40, Kirk.
Yeah. And that's with the worst cooler. I mean, we can go back and look at the Threadripper article and
Well, hang on, Kirk. Just because you have a really big cooler doesn't mean it can do well at like idle.
correct. He was talking about needing to install the drivers and everything to get it happy. The NZXT that I was testing actually did really good at just straight out of the box. It was when I put the software on the system that it went to garbage.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, the software went and changed the profile or whatever for that cooler and made the fans ramp up to 100%, the pump go to 100% under any kind of serious load, and the thing just made so much noise. It was atrocious. It made it way noisier.
Noise.
Yeah, so yeah, I'd have to make custom fan profiles to turn that down. But with reviews, you test the different stock options and then make a tweak and say, but here's how to help mitigate that. But I wasn't able to get the audibles down until I ripped out the software. Like I just completely ripped out the software and everything went back to quiet. It was great.
You know what kills quiet PCs? Power supplies. So you can't control the freaking fans on those.
You can get ones that are efficient enough that the fan doesn't turn on until 500 watts.
Here's the thing. But like the one I have in my new small form factor one, that's a gold PSU from a very credible manufacturer. And it will still ramp up like to a fairly audible amount of noise from time to time, even at idle. And I understand it's not normal power supply. I get that.
I haven't heard my PSU fan in a long time. My biggest noise contributor is my liquid cooler.
Yeah.
And
well, it's just,
and my video card, of course. But that's kind of even when the video card is idle and the fans have stopped because of the whole fan stop thing, I still hear the radiator. And and it's not the pump, it's the fans on the thing, and they spin up and down because of the fan profile, and they're noisy if they go over like 30-40%. So it's not like I can just lock them down at a low fan speed because then the temperature goes too high.
I would just prefer if my power supply's fan was spinning all the time at a fairly low RPM, rather than like spinning up like at a really high RPM sometimes, because that's just so annoying.
Well, you can take the fan lead out of the power supply and feed it to a motherboard header that's right there on the bottom of the board, and then control it from your BIOS.
I will never open up a power supply, ever.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, but if you like touch one of the capacitors, you could kill yourself.
Well, don't touch the capacitor, especially on the other side of the board.
I have like I'm fairly clumsy, Kirk, okay? I'm not gonna get myself killed just because I wanted a slightly quieter PC.
I can just see you like trying to vacuum your motherboard with a wand or something and popping capacitors off.
What the hell are you talking about? I said I was clumsy, not an idiot. You think I'd actually vacuum like straight up a motherboard and get so close to it and hit it so hard that I break it?
I just laughed because that's what my mom did.
Oh, well, first of all, I'm not your mom. And second of all, why was she doing that?
You know how old people are, right?
Yeah, but why was she dealing with a motherboard?
It was covered in dust. It made sense to her. I can't vouch for any of it.
Oh, is that board? Is it okay?
No.
Oh, you could have soldered the cap back on.
Not with how she damaged it.
Oh, what'd she do?
Got sucked into the vacuum. What else would it do?
Oh my god. I just figured it'd pop off, maybe stick to the board a little.
Mm-mm.
That's that's a sad story, Kirk.
I'm
sorry you had to see that.
I just get a laugh out of it. I didn't live with her at the time. Come on. Not all of us live at home.
Well, I'm young boy, so I do live at home. What, do you not have a home that you live in?
No, I have a home that I live in. It's just very expensive to live in a home with your own family. It's really expensive nowadays.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know the feeling.
I don't blame anybody for still living at home or having a multi-generational family at home. There's just some days or some ways that you just can't do it anymore.
Just make more money.
Oh, yeah. If that was only the option, right?
Yeah. They should legalize prostitution so we can do that.
No comment.
There's that.
We'll just stay off of that discussion.
If that's getting in there, if you've made it to this part of the podcast, congratulations.
Yep, we're going to get comments about that one.
Wait, it's like achievements in Steam. We can gauge how far people are getting into the podcast
based on their comments.
Yeah. You know, like how there are some achievements where it's like start the game and it'll be like 50% of players have achieved this achievement.
Well, I've read comments where nobody has achieved that achievement.
Oh. Yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah. It's like, they answered that at like minute 5, right?
Minute 5. Maybe they skipped ahead.
Yeah, they could. What I really enjoyed was the comment that was like, oh, you didn't talk about this, but yet it was in the title.
Hey, if you skipped ahead to this part of the podcast, submit your answers now.
Hey, there you go.
Live audience participation in post. Okay, well, I think we covered a lot of ground. Very important topics we talked about.
I do got to finish the story about that RAM on the Threadripper, though.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't even hit the best part of it yet. That blurry photo that was showing the temperature.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to get 34 Celsius or so in BIOS. I posted a picture to him of my BIOS with that temperature reading of 34.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with NZXT, I think it was.
Okay.
But he also was arguing vehemently with me about his RAM speed because he had it set purposefully at 2133 megahertz.
Okay.
And he
Why do you do that?
He had Corsair Vengeance 3600 RAM, and he left it at the default of 2133.
Why did he do that?
He was saying it was a stability thing and that he had a very smart engineer friend of his that told him that he should leave it at 2133.
I mean, he's not wrong. It is more stable, but I mean, it's rated for. I mean, you could at least go up to even if it's like a platform mismatch. At 3600 megahertz rated, they could probably go at least to 2933.
Well, he even said himself with some of the stuff he was linking, because he linked a lot of Intel kind of documents that are talking about Intel settings. It's like you only posted 2 things that are even referring to AMD, and you still haven't even understood why you should clock it up. And
Yeah.
one of them was, you should run it at the clock speed supported by the memory controller, which is, in the case of Threadripper, 3200. He was still
Yeah.
leaving it at 2133 because he wanted
Like,
stability, because he didn't think that RAM speed would really affect what he wanted to do, which was run, or what his customer wanted to do, which was run virtual machines,
oh, that poor
video
customer.
editing, and
Oh.
3D. And so I'm sitting here like, all right, I'm just gonna just.
How do you know this guy?
Oh, he was just some rando on a forum of sorts. So
Oh, God, that poor customer.
I'm sure one of our viewers has probably seen. Maybe it. I don't know. It might be too obscure, but still, I just shook my head, and it's like,
That reminds me of
one of my
a really-
comments was actually a slash face palm, and
Oh my God.
that was the last comment I left on it.
That reminds me of back in the heyday, like the golden age of forums, where by the way, this isn't the end of the podcast; it's still going. I think it's like the bodybuilding or like one of those like fitness forums, and this guy thought a week was 6 days long, and this is a thread that goes on for several pages of him and a bunch of other people going back and forth trying to tell him that it had something to do with like alternating days. I think the issue was that he was counting Sunday or Saturday twice. So
how would he do that if he thought it was only 6 days?
It was something like that.
Maybe
he was
days?
it might be 8 days. No, maybe it was 8 days. Where like he was basically saying a week was 8 days long, and it's just an incredible read of like how many times people try to tell him in several different ways how to count the days of the week, and he's like, but no, and it's like, God damn, dude, you're an idiot.
Well, the unfortunate thing is nowadays there is so many toxic trollers that they just do it for fun all day, any day, whatever, and just get people riled up and waste their time arguing with these idiots.
That was kind of back before the day like people realized, like really, really realized that it was fun
to troll.
To just this was like mid early 2000s.
Yeah. And so you kind of feel bad because you want to help people that just have this fundamental misunderstanding. Just here, let me enlighten you a little bit with some easy information. And the people that are just honestly out there to troll people. And I kind of hope for humanity and assume that there's more trolls out there making themselves public than people who don't know how to Google.
Kirk, I'm sorry.
I know, I get it. But like I said, I can live in this ignorant bliss of hoping for humanity that there is some brain cells out there for people. And I have that faith in people still. But I just can't. I know I'm wrong, but let me live in my ignorance.
All right, Kirk. I'll take pity on you.
I'll be a diehard optimist as much as possible in this one little thing, at least, because I have to be pessimist in so many other ways.
Don't read Tales from Tech Support.
Here, how about this? I have faith in our viewer base that they are at least intelligent enough, and I hope that you guys aren't trolls. I really do.
Most of them are intelligent enough.
Trolls contribute to the dumbing of humanity, and I hope that you guys don't do that.
Statistically speaking, there's at least one that definitely does.
Sometimes it can be fun, as long as they're like, ha, psych, or whatever, or just post up a troll face. At least let people who are in the know. But I've seen trolls that post fake stuff, misinformation and whatnot, and actually gain a large following of people who now believe this misinformation.
Or send it to people
that
would like to
reposting
show people the real stuff.
Yeah, reposting of fake information, and it gets reposted and reposted. And yeah, it's the modern chain letter.
Yeah.
But it just contributes to the dumbing of humanity.
And then that gets, if it gets posted on Reddit, the news will report on that. And then that news article will get posted to Reddit, and then a news article will make another article out of the Reddit thread about an article. And it's like a weird game of telephone.
Yeah, and the troll will just be laughing the whole way that they deceived an entire news cycle.
Hey, that brings us back to 8 nanometer.
Yeah, it does. And our fake RDNA too that we blasted out of the interwebs.
The circle is complete.
Mm-hmm. And with that, we should probably complete the podcast. We just rolled over 1 hour. So we thank you guys for watching. Do subscribe. We thank all of our Patreon supporters for allowing us to have these podcasts with you. And if you have any questions for our Q&A podcast, be sure to throw those into the comments below or in our Discord. If you are a Patreon, you get access to our Discord. So that's always a nice perk. And you get kind of those more real-time feedback from us. So be sure to check that out. Check out Jim's YouTube video. I'm sure everyone's heard of it by now. If you haven't, go to AdoredTV on YouTube. And we will see you next time.